So I remember 1 year ago, I was at an amazing Jewish retreat in California, and there was one specific speaker that got my attention even more than all the others. His name is Rabbi Pinchas Allouche, and he is one of the most fascinating people that you're about to hear. So, Rabbi, I'm very excited for you to be on the show and share your personal story and some insights from Judaism about how we as people can become the better version of ourselves. So, maybe give us a quick introduction about your background, what are you currently doing, and we're going to dive into the discussion.
Okay, well, first, I'm delighted to be here with you, Yuval. Thank you for inviting me. A few words about myself. So, I was born in Toulouse, France, in the southern part of France, and I lived there until the age of 8, and then my family moved to South Africa, and I think that's where the bulk of my accent is from. We lived there until I was 13, and then we made Aliyah, and then we moved to Israel, particularly to Jerusalem. I then, at the age of 18, had an existential crisis, as I call it. Why so? Because all of my friends were going to the Israeli army, and I too did the process. And at one point, they said, 1 second, we heard that you have a genetic disease called familial Mediterranean fever, FMF, and we need to examine you. So they examined me, and long story short, they said to me, sorry, we can't accept you, and the IDF won't be for you. And I was broken. I didn't know what to do. I went, my whole life was projected to go to the army and then to become an attorney, believe it or not. That was at least my limited and narrowed vision then. So I went to my rabbi and I said, look, the IDF just told me no. And I'm at a crossroad in my life. I really don't know what to do next. And this is my rabbi, by the way, Rabbi Dean Steinsaltz of blessed memory, who's really a once-in-a-millennium scholar, as Time magazine called him. And he said, look, there's a post in Geneva that just opened up. It's a youth director post for the Jewish community. Why don't you go there? So I said, okay, fine. If this is what you're suggesting, I'll follow your advice. I went to Geneva, worked for the Jewish community, and then something clicked. And I immediately understood that I needed to do this not just that year, but for the rest of my life, to be devoted to community life. And that's when I decided to become a rabbi. So I changed my plans from becoming an attorney to becoming a rabbi. I went to rabbinic school, then got married in Israel, then had an assistant rabbi / youth director position in Atlanta for 4 years. And then we came here to Arizona to found Congregation Beth Tefillah, which is, thank God, a thriving community with 700 plus families and growing, and many, many different programs and events.
Wow. So, you never know how life takes you. We plan, but it changes along the way.
That's right.
So maybe you can share with us, many times we ask ourselves, why are we here in this world? What's the idea of our being? Maybe you can share with us some of your perspectives and Judaism perspectives about our being here in this world, about our purpose.
Yes. And why were we sent here to begin with? What's the purpose of it all? And for that, I have a formula that I try to follow, and I think the Geneva story reflected that. It's a formula really that's drawn from Jewish sources, and it's a formula that is called the POPP Theory, POPP. Each of those letters stand for 4 words, but I think that if we can follow the POPP Theory, then we'll have the answer to that big question of why. Why were we created? What is our purpose in life altogether? So let's delve into it for just a few moments. The first P, the first letter P, really stands for personality. I think every one of us, first and foremost, needs to ask, what is our personality? What skills do we have? What talents do we have? And are we actualizing them? Because if God gave me a talent for music, for example, and I don't practice music, then a part of myself will feel unrealized. And in many ways, I think it will also eventually haunt me, because I'll be living a life that is not the best version of myself. It's maybe the 80% version of myself, right? It's the 20% I'm not using. So we have to ask ourselves, what are our skills? What are our talents? What is our personality like? And make sure that we actualize every single one of those aspects. That's the first letter, P, personality. Then I think we have to ask ourselves the O question. The O stands for opportunities, because God gives us opportunities in life, and He gives them to us because He believes that we must actualize them, no one else, and that's why He's giving them to us and not to someone else. And these opportunities can include big opportunities like job offers or big projects to take upon ourselves, or small ones like being in a gas station and smiling at a person. Maybe God placed that opportunity in front of me so that I can cheer someone else and lift his or her spirit. So it's those small opportunities that we have to jump on. Going back to my little story, when I was refused by the IDF, I had the opportunity to go to Geneva. I could have said to my rabbi, I don't want to go. And really, maybe I wouldn't have become a rabbi. My whole life would have taken a very different turn. But I decided to follow that map and heed the call to the opportunity that was in front of me. One of the great stories, there's actually a movie now about him, is the story of Nicholas Winton. I'm sure you are familiar with it. I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with it. But Nicholas Winton was a stockbroker in 1938 that was planning a vacation to Switzerland to go and ski. And then a friend of his called him from Czechoslovakia and said, look, there are Jewish families here in Czechoslovakia that have been thrown out of their homes. We need to do something to save these children, otherwise they'll die. And he decided to heed that opportunity, the O again, and change his plans from going to Switzerland on vacation to going and help Jewish children abandoned in the streets of Czechoslovakia. And he then decided to organize a kinder transport, or many kinder transports, trains, that would take these children to Great Britain, where he was from. He would then find adoptive families for them and make sure that they are taken care of. And apparently he saved 660 children up until the war began. When the war began, he couldn't continue the project. And eventually he just forgot about those children. He knew that they were taken care of, so there was no point for him to keep in touch. But many, many years later, his wife finds a booklet in their attic with the names of all of those children that he had saved, and she didn't even know about it. So she says, Nicholas, have you been hiding something from me? What is this all about? And he breaks and he tells the story, well, these are children that I saved. I found adoptive families. That was her turn to keep a secret from him, and she decided to track down all of these children. Many of them were adults. Many of them were grandparents already by that time. She tracked down many of them. She invited them to a movie theater, and she told Nicholas, come, we're going out to the movies tonight. He didn't know that he would be surrounded by many of his own survivors. And at one point, the secret is revealed. Nicholas is asked to look around the room, and he sees everyone that is around him was saved by him. And today, Nicholas Winton is not remembered as a stockbroker. He's remembered as one of the heroes of the Holocaust who saved 660 children. And if you think about it, he saved many more because those children, had grandchildren, and so on. Why is he remembered like that? Because he heeded the call of the opportunity of the O. So I think that's perhaps the most important letter, and that's why I dwelled on it. But then there's two other letters, and that is the P. Remember, POPP, personality, opportunity. The third letter is P. That stands for people. I think the people that we meet are there for a reason too, for us to learn from them to learn from us. And then the last letter is another P, and that's places. The places we go to are places that we are sent to, that we don't just happen to go to. We're sent to for a very specific mission. Sometimes, we think we're going to the Bahamas for vacation, but there we meet someone that we can impact, or there we have an epiphany that changes our life. There's always an inner reason for the places that we are sent to. And we have to ask ourselves those questions of what is our personality? What are the opportunities that God is sending me? What are the people in my life right now? Who are they? And which places am I going to today? And the answers to those questions, I think, will give us a sense of why we were sent here to begin with and what is the purpose of life.
I love it. So it's POPP, personality,
That's right.
opportunity, people, and place.
That's correct.
So
And again, it's in the small details of life, right? It's not just the big stories. Like Liz Winton, I need to emphasize that it's important. Sometimes you go to a supermarket and there's a reason for that. Sometimes you go to a gas station, there's a reason for that. So yes.
it's paying attention in everything and everywhere we go, there is an opportunity. And I think it's very important, in a psychological aspect also. Sometimes we don't put our focus on the important things in life. And also, so we're people, we have a body and we have a soul, and if we only chase after the materialistic goals, after money, or after if we don't look around us, we would feel empty. We wouldn't be able to run long. But once we start to pay attention to the opportunities around us, something in us, the neshama, the soul part in us, is bringing us all the light and the energy that we keep on moving, growing, developing, and helping others grow, which is an amazing how the way I see it, our life is tied with each other. So we are for the if we think about it, like there is no goal for us to help others, but it feels good for us to help someone else. In us, we already are we're built in a way to have a sense of connection with others. So I'm curious if in what's your perspective about our connection and helping each other grow, how our life tied all together.
Right. That's another great question. Look, first I have to tell you that based on what you're saying, that there are two quotes that are often with me, and they speak to the very ideas that we're speaking about. Quote number one is from a Jew, Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. And he would often say, don't ask what you want from life, ask what life wants from you. It's not about you. It's about what life wants of you. Sometimes it's very uncomfortable what life wants of you, but you still need to heed the call. That's one. Two is from not a Jewish source, from Mark Twain, who said that the two most important days in a person's life are the day he or she was born and the day he or she finds out why. So it's the why question, which we asked, and I think the POPP theory can answer that question. But what is our responsibility towards others? To go to your question, look, I think that in very many ways, we weren't created for ourselves, to benefit ourselves, or to necessarily focus on ourselves. We were created really to focus on others, to change the world through others. And I think that this is an important question and it's an important idea because our generation, as we know, is very much focused on the I, me, myself. Jokingly, they say that even the new tech devices are all called after the I. We have the iPhone, the iPad. We even have we, which is spelled with two I's. You would think that they finally got it right, but it's spelled with two I's. Maybe one company got it right, and that's YouTube. It's got the U. But it's very much a me-focused generation that we live in. In fact, every year in December, they come up with the most used words in the English language. And me, myself, and I are usually in the top 20. And I think it reflects a lot about societies. But the problem is that when we focus on ourselves, not only are we missing our purpose, much of our purpose is oriented towards other, but I think that is also when we start developing a lot of personal issues. And I will say this, and this is where Judaism is so vital, and that is that when we focus on the self, we focus naturally on our feelings. How do I feel today? What's going through my heart, my mind? And in many, many ways, feelings alone are very confusing to a person. Because the world of feelings is a boisterous, very animated one. One day I'm feeling this way, one moment I'm feeling this way, the other moment I'm feeling this way, and it's very hard for me to get a good grasp of my feelings. And when I enter this world and I stay in that world, I myself become all confused. I myself become all blurred by my own emotions. And that's why Judaism will tell you that no, focus is not on yourself, cannot be on yourself, because that will only lead to confusion. The focus should rather be on the other. And by focusing on the other, what we are actually doing is transforming our emotions into actions. And at the end of the day, it's the action towards others that define us, not the feelings. Feelings maybe is just a little part of it, but the main part of life is what I'm doing for the other, not what the other is doing for me. As a rabbi, I go unfortunately to many, many funerals. And I haven't been to a funeral yet where eulogies were about a person's feelings, how they woke up in the morning, what moods they had. No, the eulogies are always, I won't even say almost always, but always, 100% of the time, about the deceased actions, how kind the person was, what he did for others. Because at the end of the day, what defines us is what we do for others. It's not what we did for ourselves. And that, in many ways, is why Judaism focuses so much on the responsibility we have towards others, because that is what will define us at the end of the day. I will quote my beloved rabbi again, Adin Steinsaltz, who would often say that we only truly own what we give. What we take doesn't stay with us, right? Eventually, after 120, we go up to heaven and we can't even take a pair of socks with us. But what we gave, that stays in the hearts of the people that we touched forever and ever. Those deeds create also ripple effects that go on forever and ever. So we only truly own what we give.
Wow, I love this idea because it changes our whole perspective when we approach people. So actually the whole system, how we build, if we look at it, it's all towards looking at others. Our eyes, we don't see ourselves, we see others. Our speech, we talk to others. Our body language, we express everything is towards others, not internally. And I think that's also when we feel more purposed, when we feel fulfilled, is when we help others, when we actually help others. So the whole thing of actually focusing on what do I need is how can I help others grow? Why am I sent? Why was I sent here from the beginning to this world? Which person was I born to be?
Mm-hmm.
And bring it out there. Maybe do you have some tips that can help people bring out the person they were born to be out to the world and get to the next step towards their purpose?
Yes, I have a few tips. One is in the realm of thoughts. And I would encourage everyone, and I do this with myself, that every time we think of the word self, then we should substitute that word with the word other. So when we think of self-pity, let's have other pity. When we think of self-interest, let's have the word other interest. Let's rewire our lives so that, as you just said, it's not focused on me, myself, and I, but it's focused on the other, because at the end of the day, as we said, that's what defines us. So it's that thought exercise. But I would also encourage everyone out there that, and I would really, and I've spoken to psychologists in my community and beyond, and I know they would agree with this, but I would encourage everyone out there that when they are feeling down, the best remedy is not necessarily to take another Xanax or to go to another hour of therapy, even though sometimes that's what's needed. Let me not discard that altogether, but in most cases, the best remedy is to go do something good for someone else. That deed will trigger in us not just a good feeling and a feeling of being validated, but it will also ensure that the goodness of our deeds will expel the darkness of our mood. And I think that it works each and every time. Really, I tell people, you're feeling in a bad mood now, go and visit the sick. Just 2 days ago, literally 2 days ago, I had a young lady come and she was feeling down. She's been feeling down for quite a while. And, she spoke to me about her troubles, and suddenly she also needs therapy. So again, I'm not disregarding that. But I told her, you know what? Go and there's a senior citizen here, and I know you're good with people. So why don't you go and visit them once a day for 5 minutes, 10 minutes? And this morning she called me and she said, it's working. It's working. Yes, I wake up and I'm a little depressed and so on, but just going and visiting those senior citizens is really brings so much joy and so much light into her life that eventually that joy and that light are expelling the sadness of depression, negativity, and the darkness. So I would encourage everyone to do that.
It's actually making our inner container bigger. So there is always light and darkness, but once we fill ourselves with more light, we don't feel the darkness.
That's right. Very well said. Yeah, very well said. It goes back to what Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi taught. It became such a famous quote. But that a little bit of light expels a lot of darkness. And sometimes those actions of light expel all of our inner darkness.
That's fascinating to look at life from so many perspectives. But the main very interesting thing is to see how actually seeing others, and there are people all around us, and we're not paying attention to that by helping others, being with others, we actually fulfill our purpose, fulfill who we are, why we came here. And
That's
sometimes
right.
we're not sure about what it is, and we figure it out along the way.
So true. It's interesting. I'll tell you this. As you know, in Hebrew, there are two words for happiness. One is osher, another one, like asher ve'vetecha. Another one is simcha. Now, there's a difference between the two. Osher is happiness that we feel, and simcha is happiness that we do. See, the difference is tremendous, because happiness that we feel is happiness that is almost entirely dependent on outside circumstances. If I win the lottery, I'll be happy. If I go to a good concert, I'll be happy. If I get good news, I'll be happy. But all of these are dependent on the outside circumstances. When I do happiness and not just feel happiness, when I have simcha, not osher, what I am doing is that I'm gaining control over that happiness. I'm not relegating it to outside sources, but I'm actually owning it. And I'm owning that happiness by doing. When I visit the sick, I become happy. When I visit those senior citizens, I become happy. When I give tzedakah, I become happy. When I cheer someone up, when I smile at someone else, I become happy. That's happiness that we do. And that happiness is dependent on us alone. And that happiness, I would add, is happiness that is so much deeper and therefore more eternal than the osher, the happiness that we feel.
Bring down to action the happiness. We have in our power to change lives. We have in our power to add the simcha, make our life and others happy. That's very important to remember. I think for our listeners, it is very important to remember and pay attention to that. Do you blame the world in your problem, or you take the responsibility and change your life and add more happiness into your life?
That's right.
So it's a very important thing to remember. I want to look at our conversation here. We spoke about different perspectives, but the main perspective is to live a purposeful life, to find who we were born to be and bring it out to the world. Well, maybe you can share with our listeners one more quote or one more thing that inspires you to become a better person than who you were yesterday, to always develop yourself and grow
Right. So I'm going to share two quotes, and I'll dedicate them in loving memory of my beloved Rabbi Dean Steinsaltz, who I've quoted already, because coincidentally or not, actually, we don't believe in coincidences. So by divine providence, his Yortzeit, his fourth Yortzeit anniversary of passing was yesterday, on the 17th of Av in the Jewish calendar. So I'll share two pieces of advice with your listeners that he gave me that really fuel me each and every day. The first one came when I was about 16 years old. And I was in a state, as many teenagers, of questions, of self-doubts, of insecurity. And he pulled me aside and he said, look, Penny, I want you to know something. That at the end of the day, only two people will care about your emotions, your mother and your shrink. But 7 billion people will care about your actions. So focus more on the latter than on the former. Every action creates a ripple effect on planet Earth, where 7 people now, 7 billion, now it's 8 billion people live. So focus more on actions than feelings. That's one. I think it's an important reminder. Number two, much later, about 10 years ago, he again called me aside and he said, you know what the problem is with most people is that they ask themselves, what have I accomplished? Instead of asking themselves, how much more should I accomplish? In many ways, it reflected who he was and who we should all be, to never be satisfied with our past deeds. No matter how much we've accomplished, there's so much more to accomplish. So we should really ask ourselves, not what we've accomplished thus far, but how much more can we and should we accomplish? And those accomplishments should be not accomplishments of feelings of osher, but accomplishments of positive actions for those 8 billion people and simcha, happiness that we do.
Wow, that's amazing. Those are some strong, insightful quotes that can go with each one of us to make sure we keep on develop and grow. I
Yeah.
love it. So Rabbi Allouche, I want to thank you very much for sharing your insights, your perspectives, and give us the Jewish perspectives into how we can become better people than who we were yesterday and light the world in a bigger light.
Thank you so
So
much, Yuval. It was really a delight. And thank you to you and to all of your listeners.
thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you.